I think I found a new mechanic in Ultimate General Civil War that previously has not been discovered. And the reason I found this was pure luck, as many of the things we find in this game are. And it happened because training in my game just jumped to 86, 81 to 86. If you've played Supply Raid, you know that it's very likely that the manpower number is going to go up significantly. And indeed, I played this twice, and the first time manpower went up significantly. It's why I play Supply Raid last of the three side battles, because it will drive up scaling in the other two side battles. So if you play it last, you avoid that, even though it's the first one in the series of the three side battles. So I did that. I played it last, and no surprise, just like every other time, manpower went up significantly. It went up about 8,000. Even though I killed a bunch of the enemy, it went up 8,000. The second time I played it, I wiped out all of the enemy forces, and instead it procced, this increase procced on, it didn't hit manpower, it hit training. And it was a 13-point jump in training. Now, I've had other battles that went up significantly in armory. So here's what I think happens. Either there are fixed battles. Well, I know there are fixed battles where this happens. And Supply Raid is one of them. It always happens at Supply Raid. But I've never been hit, or I've never paid attention to training and armory. In every battle I played in Supply Raid, I think I went up in manpower. But there is a percentage chance that instead of hitting manpower, it will hit training or armory. And the thing about it is the verbiage is always the same when this happens. When it hits training, the verbiage you see on the little after action document is they're going to send drill instructors or trainers. And if that happens, there's going to be a huge jump in training. And that's happened in my game, in my campaign now several times. I think at least 2 times. I'm trying to remember if it's happened a third time. Big jumps in training, which is why at the end of the battle I was looking at training level 81 to 86. And personally, I think 81 to 86 just breaks the game. There's no cap on this. There doesn't seem to be any calculation that if training is already unrealistically high, that this thing won't proc. I think it just is random, and if it procs, it procs. Now, the odds of having training get hit every time is not very good. So the odds of that happening in your game, not very likely. And in fact, I think there's a higher percentage chance that it hits manpower. And we've all seen that before. Manpower goes up after a battle, and we think that it's because it's programmed that the enemy is going to get a lot of reinforcements at that point. I don't think so. I think it's a random event. Well, I think it's for that battle, there's going to be an event, but it can hit manpower, training, or armory. And if it hits, it's more likely to hit manpower. That's why you see the increase in manpower. If it hits training, you're probably not going to pay attention to it because we don't pay much attention to training and armory. But if you get hit a couple times in training, it's going to change your game. Same thing if it hits a couple times in armory. I don't know if the amount of the increase is the same on Brigadier General, Major General, and Legendary. It's probably a different increase number. That may be random too. But if you get hit in any one area other than manpower, because manpower you can always drive back down. Training is really hard to drive back down. So the verbiage used in armory, if armory goes up, is interesting. It says the enemy gets a shipment of weapons, and the shipment is being unloaded. So if you see that, you're going to see a jump in about 10 points or more to armory, which means weapon quality is going to go up significantly. So in my campaign, I was the armory number was low, and I was getting Tyler Texas's much longer than usual. Usually I was getting Harper's Ferries by an earlier point in the game when I was still getting Tyler's. And then it procced that a shipment of weapons occurred, and I'm getting CS Richmonds and Fayettevilles. Well, I think the first time it procced, I think it went from Tyler, Texas's to Harper's Ferries, and then I think it procced again, and I was getting CS Richmonds and Fayettevilles. And I'm getting the CS Richmonds and Fayettevilles earlier. So then I had then I had expected, but about the time that I saw other people playing Legendary get it, maybe a little earlier than what other campaigns experience that. So you expect it to happen at some point. But my point is that when you get this verbiage telling you that this thing happened, you're going to see a big jump in that factor, the either manpower, training, or armory. And if it gets hit, if any one of those gets hit, well, manpower, who cares? But if training or armory get hit several times, it's going to significantly change your game, maybe even break your game. I certainly don't want to play on training of 86. That just sounds crazy. So how did I get to see that? Well, the other thing that's really interesting is I didn't think that you could reload a game from the middle and it would change the outcome. Turns out that's not correct. I save the game in the middle because I'm recording, so I need small files, small video files. Although otherwise things go badly. So you lose files. So I saved at the point where the supply wagons came in. Seemed like a good place to save, to break the files up. And when I reloaded from that point. I fought the battle a second time. Something I wanted to try. It worked great. Wiped the enemy out. Super. The fact that I got a different outcome, that the first time it procced on manpower and the second time it procced on training, means that you can load from a save in the middle of the battle and get a different outcome. Absolutely. So, yeah, that was an interesting find. And the fact that it can hit any one of the three variables is also really interesting. And so, what do we do about it? I think the implication is to save the game, preferably right before the end of the battle. And if you're playing a campaign and you're just getting hammered because something other than manpower keeps getting hit and it's changing your game and making it unplayable, reload. And yeah, I think it's a broken mechanic. Unfortunately, not the only broken mechanic in Ultimate General. But if there's a way around it, if there's a workaround, then I say do it. And I'm going to do that from now on. Quite frankly, if I wasn't recording, I had it in my mind that if training hit 80, I was out. I was done. I was just going to start another campaign. I don't see that as playable. So, yeah, in my mind, just start over because, I've played dozens of campaigns. Just play another one. But I'd like to finish the series. So fortunately, I had a save, and did this little experiment, found out something. I'm going to take the save at the end of the game that put the buff into, or put the adjustment into manpower and not into training, so that I can go into Chancellorsville and not have a completely broken battle. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know what you found. I'd like for other people to pay attention. I know it's, I have played 1,000 hours and not paid any attention at all to the verbiage in those messages until this campaign. This is the first time I paid attention. Really didn't pay any attention to any of those numbers after the battle except manpower. Now, for the first time, I'm paying attention, and that's why I'm figuring this out. And so I'd like to ask those of you who play to pay attention to the verbiage, pay attention to how the numbers change. Let me know what you find. And what do you think? Are you going to save and reload? And, and again, I think it's very specific battles like Supply Raid, where something is going to probably happen. It's probably a percentage chance. And not just is something going to happen, but it's probably going to hit manpower, but there's some percentage chance that it hits one of the other two. It doesn't seem to be well thought out, though. So in my case, training was already too high, way beyond normal, and it hit training again. So if it had been a thought-out mechanic, if training was already unrealistically high, the chance of it proccing again should have been very small percentage chance, and more likely to hit one of the other two numbers, like manpower. Manpower was low because I've been killing all of the enemy in every battle possible, and that's the one that should have hit if it was assigning a probability based on where the numbers were. That tells me that it's assigning a probability that is just random, and there's no thought to it at all. So you could have 100 training, and it could hit again. That doesn't make any sense. So let me know what you think. Let me know what you find in your game, and this will be an interesting discussion. I hope this helps you understand another mechanic in Ultimate General Civil War, and if I'm completely wrong about this, I'd appreciate hearing about it. Thanks.